The situation in Ethiopia's Tigray region, where war has been underway for 2 years, is causing increasing concern. This after a recent surge in fighting between the Ethiopian government and the authorities in Ethiopia's Tigray region in the north. It's triggered fears for civilians caught in the crossfire. The first formal peace talks between the warring sides opened today in South Africa. And I'm joined now on the line by Roland Marchal, who is a researcher with Sciences Po Institute here in France, a research institute, a prestigious research institute. He's a specialist in the Horn of Africa region. I wondered, could you tell us more about what's behind the war in this part of the world and its humanitarian impact? What's the situation, first of all, currently on the ground?
Okay, it's very difficult to provide a balanced description of the ground situation, mostly because the government in Addis Ababa doesn't allow journalists to do their work, and as well the TPLF, the Tigray administration, is willing to describe the situation in terms that are very favorable for its own rule. But what we know is humanitarian aid is absolutely needed. Basic services have been cut whenever the government in Addis Ababa had the power to do so. And so what would be expected in a reasonable discussion is first, again, humanitarian access to the whole population of Tigray, restoration of the main services like electricity, maybe banking services that will allow the population to get support from their relatives outside the country, and so on and so forth. What is going to be discussed in South Africa is certainly much less than that. And of course, there are, it's an achievement by itself that this meeting takes place, yet there are so many pending issues on the mediators, on even the delegation, the composition of the two delegations, as well as a kind of new optimism in Addis Ababa because of several victories in the recent days that make the hardliners think that why should we negotiate at the time we could win this war, despite the fact that hope to win the war has been there for the last 2 years, and as we see, Ethiopia has failed to take over the control of Tigray up to now.
So you don't sound hopeful that there will be much more than a small amount of progress at these talks. A number of countries have recently started taking a new interest in this region. I'm thinking of China, India, I gather even Korea. Can you tell us how that plays into these conflicts in the area?
Okay, we have a number of new partners. Turkey is one that is not often mentioned. Turkey investment in Ethiopia is first in Africa. We have, of course, Western states have been for a very long time the main providers of ODA, UK, European Union, USA. That's why US Special Envoy plays such a role. Moreover, Ethiopia being the headquarters of the African Union, we have as well, a mediator appointed by the African Union. We have as well the former president of Kenya Uhuru Kenyatta attending the talks. And behind we have EU Special Envoy, we have a number of other stakeholders who may not be on the first line, but certainly pushing. The question is, what is the role of Eritrea? To what extent Abiy Ahmed is committed to find a political settlement? To what extent the Tigrayans, have an option within the current Ethiopia? So these are extremely difficult questions for all Ethiopians, Tigrayans, or Addis Ababa. And they are even more difficult for the international community because, of course, you could have spoilers who may convince one part or the other to play the hard line, hoping that the outcome will be better for them.
It's very difficult, of course, to get access to this region. There are very few reports from journalists. What do we know about the humanitarian situation? How close are they to famine? There's also reports of sexual violence.
Yeah, we have a number of journalists, courageous journalists, and actually gifted journalists. Were lucky enough to move through the censorship and go much beyond what they were authorized to do. And so we know that the humanitarian situation in Tigray is highly problematic. It's as well problematic in other Ethiopian regions, but certainly in Tigray is a disaster. And they need much more than what is today allowed. We know as well that the behavior of armed forces is highly problematic. There have been mass killings. Eritrean forces are pinpointed very often, but we should have access to independent investigations. And this is not clearly taking place up to today, despite a few reports. And third, we need to look at long-term solution, and this is why the discussion in South Africa is very good as the way they are.
Well, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Roland Marchal of Sciences Po here in France. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.